My viewers, it's Shirley with Spirit of Matter. And I want to thank you, loyal people, that are sticking around with my plethora of content. I'm broadcasting today from Ben Gurion Airport, Israel, Palestine, Palestina. Um, Three planes in front of me, which is interesting. So I want to talk about Pluto in Pisces. And right now, this is a soul day, so we can invite Apollo to revoke tyranny. And I'll tell you something about Apollo. Of course, I played the Orphic hymn for Apollo this morning. And as I was riding and just stopping at the mall, there was a religious person, I don't know of what religion, they call themselves Jews, but Jews don't worship Baal, um, he said that this is the soul month and some lion is going to come and I don't know what. But in these moments, a good reference would be Apollo. And when you refer a god or a deity, you need to understand that you have a point of interference where you can refer that god or deity with the desired qualities. Okay, so when I refer Apollo, I don't refer dark aspects of Apollo and so on, or how it's worshipped in all times. I would call on Apollo to remove of tyranny and encourage creativity and creative solutions. Okay, so that's important. It's going to get very important when we're going to get to Pluto in Pisces. So of course, Apollo, we get the ascendant 26 degrees Sag. So this is on a very particular point in the sky, which is called the galactic center. And this is a center where sidereally is right between Scorpio and Sagittarius. Tropically is 26 Sagittarius. And the thing about this point is that this is where you get to choose of the light and darkness. And that's another thing that's going to accompany us. The themes of choice with Saturn and Pluto is going to be a deep discussion over the philosophy of choices and understanding there is a sense of fatedness to astrology as well. So my great teacher Alada Duncheva talks about the fact that there are some people for whom where they have certain points in this point in the world points, they sometimes have fated choices. Or sometimes they go to the dark, and sometimes they go to the light. And there was just a woman singing, "Your mother went to send the luggage." And she was singing that in such beautiful Hebrew. I had to stop there. Venus is in 7 degrees Virgo at this time. And Venus in Virgo has a special quality. Like that mother singing to her children, so she's going to divert their attention, diversion tactic Mercury, while they are waiting in line at the airport. So you see the Venus serving here to have practical, to have a practical reasoning for her singing. And this Venus is sextiling Moon in 7 degrees Scorpio. Nice time to call on Al-Qaeda as well. It's not directly pinpointed, but by the 7, with the power of 7 and the association to fixed star Al-Qaeda, protection from assassination just when you go in public places in a war zone. Maybe that's nice. Jupiter is in Gemini. In the 7th house, it's detriment. But it's conjuncting Mars and applying to conjunct Saturn. This is Venus hour, so we can call on the many deities of Venus. Okay, Isis, Ishtar, Inanna, Aphrodite, but also Diana. Okay, and all of these goddesses are playing big part in what's happening, especially for those who believe that Venus, or the goddess Venus, or the goddesses of the feminine were married to a man who demanded the child sacrifice. Okay, goddess of fertility, and those were practices that come from many tribes and religions and practices, of which Abrahamic religions asked to abolish, but it didn't work for them as well. And so we see very strange phenomena where people practice supposedly Abrahamic religions and they do child sacrifice, while the tribes that used to practice child sacrifice, and many of them actually said, no, put hibiscus instead of blood sacrifice. And for those deities, they appreciate that. So we never needed blood sacrifice, never needed child sacrifice, we definitely never needed genitalia mutilation. It is all evolution of our mentality as people. And that is another thing that's going to get stronger with Pluto in Pisces. Now let's get to the nitty-gritty. Why am I talking about Pluto in Pisces when Pluto has barely entered Aquarius for good? I'm going to be 60. Okay, it's 20 years from now. Some people I know are going to be 80. Okay? Why are we talking about Pluto in Pisces? Well, if you remember my video, and you definitely get a digital cookie if you do, because, okay, digital cookie is not so good, and I don't send surveillance your way. I don't need to because they surveil everyone. But if you remember my video about Uranus in Gemini a while ago, and how the Mars in Gemini, okay, now we have another Mars in Gemini, but we had a Mars retrograde in Gemini that I think nobody forgot it in the astrological community till now. And those prepare us for the Uranus in Gemini, okay? So the heat, the speed, the change of direction, and now we have another such combination because the ruler of Aquarius, Saturn, not just Uranus, Saturn, but also Uranus, just ruled by Venus. Notice this is a Venus hour, and an Apollo day, removing tyranny and creativity. That is also practical, architecture. And so, right now, the ruler of Pluto is in Pisces, Saturn, and we get the preparation with Saturn in Pisces and a Pluto in Aquarius, the preparation for the Pluto in Pisces. Okay, so for example, electrocution of water infrastructure. Okay, nervous system, electricity, Uranus. It's also associated with Aquarius. Going to the oceans. You won't expect me to say that, okay? Drives the orcas crazy. Toxicity, Saturn 18th degree, poison. Toxicity radiation in the ocean. The pollutions, okay, of whatever we do in the ocean is affecting our day-to-day life. And Saturn in Pisces, in general, is kind of like it's Lord of Karma, meeting a land where everything is so malleable. Okay, and I'm right now at an airport. There's basically like a tunnel that you go through, and then you're not sure at what space you are outside of the land and what space you are inside of the land. Okay, the teleportation is another theme. Aviation is another thing. Going far, far distances. Yes, in water, but also flying. So we talk about spaceship, trips to space, okay? And so with this Saturn, just Saturn in Pisces is bringing a reality check and incarnation to our dreams. Okay? Things we didn't dream were possible suddenly become possible, but also there is a reality check to it. Okay? Think about a very, very famous person that you thought you never get to talk to. Okay? Now you get to have a conversation, yes? But also think about the image you had of this person. Now you get to have a reality check of more of what this person is in real life or the life circumstances. It could also be people you didn't think are so important to your life or so. Okay, now you get to have a reality check. They're more important than you thought, or your value, okay, valuation or devaluation. And there is a sense of balancing that, okay, with Saturn. For example, one of the big Saturn Pisces 18 degree for me is you get to learn about court systems so much so that you think the head of the drug cartels, why don't they murder these Supreme Court judges? And then you understand, well, no, the Supreme Court judges are also in this system, but they were breeded to be Epstein-like figures and intelligence figures. But you kind of think of, in a lower level of analysis, okay, you kind of think of, it is so crazy because when I was 12 years old, I said I wanted to be a Supreme Court judge, but I was afraid of crime organizations. And now I said, well, no, the heads of crime organizations were basically sometimes they're less corrupt than the Supreme Court judge. Okay? So now you get to understand these things of what Saturn can do to you when in the land of Pisces, land of duality, a land of this is also this, or this is not what you thought. There's another side to the coin. There's two fishes swimming in opposite directions, but are connected between them. And so it seems like there is stagnation and emotion at the same time. Now, this Saturn ruling of Pluto in Aquarius is ruling over our sciences, a global society, the type of all-encompassing country, globalism, the type of currency that is all across the board, okay? And Pluto brings in everything, kind of the soft underbelly. Now, the conjoining of the Pisces archetype and the Aquarius archetype is ushering us, okay, into the time where right now when Saturn is in Pisces, just another year and a half or so. It's not a lot of time that we get the huge chance to set the stage and begin to tend to. Tending to is the greatest Saturn word, because Saturn feels like you're climbing the mountain. And for you, the first thing for you to climb a mountain, if you stand, let's say you're already standing in front of the mountain, you already had needed to prepare many things, but you also need to prepare your consciousness, Jupiter, that's in Pisces, to this long journey. And you say, the first thing, how will I ever do that? Well, you're tending to it. Then you begin to get ideas for the next step and the next step and the next step. Okay, let's see who did that before. Saturn. Let's try to learn who did that before. What was their mindset? How did they prepare? What were the successes? What are the failures? How many people died on this journey? Okay, Saturn. How many people already survived this journey? And you begin to connect for the dots. to understand where you're standing. Okay? And the many perspectives. For one perspective, you're already standing here in front of the mountain. You already understand that you are in a place that many people never have been before you. Many people have been. Maybe many didn't succeed, many did succeed. Maybe few did succeed, maybe succeeded, but you didn't hear about publicly. And you understand at the very bottom of the mountain that you are now, just standing here to making the first step, is sometimes even the greatest step that you could do. Right now we have this with everything Aquarius Pisces, but also Taurian, because Uranus is associated. Okay? And you're probably wondering, why am I saying all of this and don't invite you over to a platform where you can pay me, where you can this, where you can that? Well, you also know that I tend to abolishing expandable children and freeing children from satanic abuse, ritual abuse. But what is it in essence? Okay, torture of children, sacrifice of children, all these archaic structures that never did serve society, but we now understand they no longer serve society, and even hamper our own well-being and happiness, definitely the well-being and happiness of these children. And I'm tending to that through ideas and through sharing ideas and through sharing initiations, which you are very much invited to do with me. Currently, I know no currency that fully supports that, and I'm open to hear about ideas and share dividends in such projects. I do know there is an initiation called the Bank of Joy by Ronald Bernard. I need to learn more about it. I'm tending more to the housing of these children, especially for the people who can't pay rent, who can't this, who can't that, and for protection of these children. Not saying I have all the answers, I don't. And so those things are practically the reason that I don't yet invite you to pay me for a course right now. But if you have a currency that I would like to hear about with similar vision or complementary vision, then my email is madetolovemagic1 @gmail.com, and that's where you can contact me. And now back to a topic. Pluto in Pisces is going to spend, okay, I don't remember if it's 2 decades is the most, or decade and a half, like in Capricorn, digging deeper into the implications of the intuitions and the understandings and the steps we set already today. So I invite you, first of all, tend to the connection between the ocean, drugs, the drug and the poison, crime, organized and not organized, hidden and visible crime, the malleability of identities, the malleability of belief and its servitude, okay? The connection between a drug, a belief, a global or all-encompassing, a viral, okay? A medical, a religion, and a hidden money. Jupiter also rules children. Jupiter, known as Zeus. Okay, for the darker side of Zeus, because we're gonna tend to, right now it's not soling a Pluto soul, but actually Pluto, okay, we talk about Pluto Pisces, so Pluto of Zeus nature, but the darkest spot is incest. Connected the two, drugs, religion, and the lack of, and heretics as well, both the religious and the heretics. Medicine, of what is disguised as medicine. The oceans and the pollution in the oceans. Ships and traveling. What is a child? The consciousness. Malleability of identities. Okay? Art, myth, movie, okay? Alternative reality, the dream state. State. Okay? When you at least tend to these things now, once Pluto is here, and this is like sending a message in a bottle and throwing it into the ocean, it's gonna pop. And 20 years from now, we're gonna have the ingress of Pluto into these topics. The great uncoverer, a rejuvenator, okay? What did we have when Pluto entered the Capricorn in 2008? Around this time, not only financial crisis, the interest, the subprime, what we know as the subprime, that would later usher us into a bigger digital coin systems. But also, we had a black president, gay marriage, okay? And then only when he gets to the top of the pyramid, you're like, whoa, both the black president, the woman president, or the woman president is besties with a pedophile ring manager who was himself breeded, abused, and tortured, and ushered into this type of life. Okay? This is kind of what people call the fall of the cabal. But I remind you that child sacrifice is something as old as Inuit. And we need to tend to that on all levels. We can tend to that on all levels. And this is important. Because Pluto in Pisces Pluto in Aquarius is going to tend to cults. This is the time, but you know who tended great to cults? China. Now we know this is the Falun Gong. Well, they're the Freemasons. China tended to cults. Amazing. Now we know it as the Falun Gong. And now there's a question, because we definitely want to tend to the malpractices of cults. But we don't want to end up Falun Gong. Okay? If we don't want that to perpetuate this on those who are considered to be of cult. So how do we tend into cult while maintaining human dignity? Here's a question. Pluto in Pisces is going to take all of these questions that we have with Saturn in Pisces, and it's going to dig way, 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 way deeper. Now I want to think about what did you do when Saturn was in Aquarius? Because just recently, Pluto has begun to delve back and forth in the past 2-3 years, back and forth between Capricorn and Aquarius. Okay, what did you do when Saturn was in Aquarius? What were you tending to? Okay, I was tending to that the thing I thought was, I don't know, psychosis or this or that people say, I don't know, aliens and this. I say, well, they must feel something, abducted by government. I'm like, okay, but aliens? And I begin to see the patterns in what they say. They say, okay, maybe they are trying to say an imagery of something, and I need to understand, okay, with the voice of what do they mean. It was like, when you come down to that, they mean almost very literally what is happening is just so distant from your world that, especially if you meet them in the context of like you see them at the hospital and so on, they look like alien themselves to your own mental structure. And so the bridges between worlds began to firm, and I learned about an approach called open dialogue, which in Finland was practiced with housing first. And that's like what they cure psychosis of without anything. It was like, well, haven't you noticed that the pills, what they say, is affects pyramidal and the extrapyramidal? I said, what do you think is that? What, the cult? Yes, that's the cults. But they only tend to cult abuse, that is the small cults that would compete the big cults. And then the survivors, they will say, of the small cults, they say, no, but they did medical experiments with me, but they did this, but they did that. They're doing that with all of us. It's just that an experiment is when you don't know what happens. They know what happens. And it's not the medicine, okay? Now, when Pluto goes Aquarius, I'm like, of course there is SRA. Over the expendable children. Wait. You want to tell me that Boko Haram is like our politics in Europe? No, wait. Now, Yoris the Mink is like Aaron Barak. Not just Ehud Barak. Aaron Barak. Or for personal reasons, couldn't attend Hag. Maybe, I don't know. Structurally, you understand how the structure works, you begin to connect the dots. But all the expendable children that they didn't manage to kill. So the doctor that tried to kidnap me when I was 9 years old, yes. And what I heard from survivors was, I was watching a movie of testimonials, and they said, we want to give a voice to the voiceless that died, that were murdered. You didn't get to hear about them, okay? You know famous survivors, you know Mark Rutte, you know Geert Wilders, you know Beyonce, you know Jay-Z, you know Elon Musk, okay, you know Donald Trump, you know Bibi, you know Hania, Ismail Hania. What you don't know is those names, the children that didn't make it, simply because the snuff movie that was ordered with them murdered. Simply because that. Whereas with Anneke Lucas, they said, oh, let's make surprise that she murders 2 grown men. And then a handler took her out. You want to read her story, and you can order her book. Or can attend her workshops. And she also tends to healing from that. That's the same insight that, hey, for these people that we think are crazy, what they need is a place to be independently of their ability to work, because they need to ground themselves, and then they need to be believed in seeing. And you see that they're exposing to us facets of society that were so separated intentionally from our worlds by programming, by technologies that are so well developed, but we don't hear about them, that we think is science fiction, when for centuries it is not. Okay, so this is just Saturn. Oh, what helps psychosis is actually housing first and open dialogue. Okay, to believe in these people, and then for them to be able to ground themselves until they are able to do something they love. Well, that makes sense. That cures psychosis. Yes, you know that hard skin you have on your heel. There's some good food that helps, the sprouts that helps that, the niacin that helps that. Yes? What is it good for when you tend to that skin to keep in your body, stay of consciousness in your body all the way down to the heels so you don't get psychosis? It's good against schizophrenia. It sounds like a style of art because they were programming the people to have this schizophrenia for what mission, what you call Ubermensch, to create a superhuman that they're making experiments, but now it's not experiments, that they know how to program people, and if they don't want you to talk about violence so that people won't understand how these control tactics work, then they call you all kinds of weird names that have all kinds of very terrible treatments that put you in working camps. But if they think you can advocate for them, then they put you in MK Ultra like institutions, like academia, and some experiments, like myself, work out strange. And they're trying to maneuver. Okay? So there's the difference between, oh, so that's how, oh, but there isn't actually psychosis, I'm not imagining. For this guy, what he would tell me that was one-to-one correct. And some doctor kidnapped him, and the difference is that somebody saved me when I was a child, and him didn't. As now we meet here. That's it. To Pluto, it's like, oh, our entire political system, it's our media, our science, and it's all of these people, the journalists, all of these people, all of these people. What in China, in Korea, and it's all everywhere. Yes. Okay. So now what you see is the same thing happening, but in Pisces. It's setting the stage, because by the time Saturn will be in Pisces again, okay, it will already be co-present with that Pluto. And that is setting the stage, okay, on all those themes that we see right now. And all these connections that we see right now, that we tend to right now, and it's an invitation to begin to tend to it. With Saturn, it rewards people who tend to Saturn. And tending to things can be as simple as saying, I set intention, I invite ideas. What the next step is? What is the next step? And these ideas and these steps, okay, can come to you, and you receive more information, then you begin to act on this information, and you begin to refine your steps more and more. By the time Pluto is in Pisces, we should have had the framework to tend to this transit and usher in the deep transformation that we want. For example, by the time that Pluto was in Capricorn, we should have had known that gay people are not more or less pedophiles than straight people, and we should have had the knowledge that, you know, black people are not more or less smart than white people. You can have black presidents in the United States, it's not a problem, okay? But also we should have had the understanding that if I don't pay the bills, for as much, I can be dead as much as they are, okay? But if the bank doesn't pay the bills, they print money. Okay? Now, what is Saturn doing in Pisces? What has Saturn been doing in Pisces so far? Now, call the Rahu that's coming up to Pisces. It's a good time because with September 18, we're going to have eclipse, lunar eclipse in Pisces. 25 degrees Pisces on my ascendant, degree for my ascendant. Okay? And that's ushering us to the Rahu in Pisces. Okay, the Pisces Virgo eclipse axis. That means that certain fated events are going to occur on and around the themes that involve this Saturn in Pisces. Okay? Medical welfare, children, the connection to religion and drugs. In the oceans, faraway places, spies, isolation, okay? Think about Julian Assange, okay? Espionage or journalist? How close was he to Epstein? Okay, we talked about they don't expose the Epstein. But then one of his lawyers, George Clooney, Epstein. Okay? And yet what does this tell us, about Assange? Now, a free man or not? Because he had to sign the Espionage Act. Okay? The structures in that which is dream state. Because the structures, if you think about the structures in psychosis or NDEs, okay? NDEs. The structure of the dream state, the structure of crossing over, the structure of altered states of consciousness. What do we channel? How do we channel? Okay? Imageries. Delusion and so on. But also, when what you think is delusional is actually way more real than what you thought was reality. Pluto is going to delve so deep down the rabbit hole that it's good to tend to it now. Dissociation is also Neptune. Okay? Neptune is associated with Poseidon, associated with Pisces. Okay? Jupiter, that's ruling Pisces, is the darker side is Jupiter. Zeus was ancestral. So religious children and the father of children. Dissociation, drugs, medicine, again, spirituality or the lack of spirituality. The movies, okay? All of these topics we are beginning to tend to now, and as we tend to the 20 years of decentralization and the times of the French Revolution and the times of the Second World War, with Uranus in Taurus around our goal, we are also setting the stage for this Pluto to delve once again 20 years from now. This is the nature also of Neptune and Pisces, where it is very much like that message in a bottle that pops. Okay, for example, I look up, and as I say this, I see International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, whatever that means. So, Keren Yedidut, okay? And Friends with Benefits. And there's a child, and the child wears an orange hat. Orange was the color. Okay, she holds two Israeli flags. And orange was the color that he used in 2005, 2006. There was a process of Israel taking 1.5 million people from what was the border with Gaza. Okay, if we could call it settlements, but that was the border with Gaza, and withdrawing them away. And then there was people saying, oh, but that would be just terror factories, which of course everybody made sure is going to come true. And now we see that that enabled what we see now in Gaza. But the orange color happened to be also the color of my other passport, which is my other nationality, which is Dutch, from my fatherland. And before 7th October, Benjamin Netanyahu, okay, Prime Minister of Israel, calls before he lets everybody know that the movie has been showtime. We literally saw the news leaking, okay, for the true date of the news being prepared in advance, a couple of hours before the actual broadcast. And he calls, no, not Wilders, Mark Rutte, who is now head of NATO. But you also know him from 1996 if you look at Mama versus Mafia on YouTube. And then there is the one bank that unites them all, called the Robo Bank, also orange. Okay? This is very Pisces. It is not Aquarian. To get to an information like this is not Aquarian. But to make these connections, not Aquarian, because these are moves that you have such length of time in between, so that you will have collective forgetting, which is a term that was used, I'm almost 100% sure, coined by my Israelis call everybody the private name, and I remember that she particularly complained that Europeans don't mention all her degrees. So I was like, I remember her as Professor Renee. And so, and she looked at the resistance in the Second World War. But she talked about the collective forgetting, which is essential to perpetuate the same dumb shit all over again when you needed to replace the heads of the top criminals that were breeded since child to be tortured, raped, and those that didn't manage to murder became for the top criminals, okay, if they didn't drop from camp school beforehand. And so you have to have collective forgetting, put everybody in dissociation so that you can implement what the other steps of whether controlling humanity, extorting humanity, or enslaving humanity. There would be believing one thing when something else is happening, diversion tactics, and so on and so forth. Neptune and Pisces land is a place where, from something so simple that you wouldn't quite think about, you have an intuition that tells you to point to the connection. And this is, by the way, medically described as a diagnosis, because if you, God forbid, make the right connections, there is a diagnosis for that. Okay? So you want to pay attention in advance of when are they going to try and set the medical definitions, the scientific definitions, the state definitions, and the infrastructures of technology, Pluto and Aquarius, to prepare us for what they want for Pluto and Pisces. They already legalized pedophilia in parliament in Germany. Yes, I believe this is true. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I'd really like to be corrected here. But I think I stand corrected to think that I can be corrected, which is insane. But if you, God forbid, pointed that out, that they're going to try and do that 20 years from now, you would have been called insane. All that still happened in the context of the last couple of decades of Aries in Aries, the sign Aries as the Übermensch, the superhuman, which indeed people have qualities like psychometry and all these things that you can absolutely reach even better through better means, okay, if you grow them with love. But because the practice by elite, and elite is so archaic in its human sacrifice practices, they believed you have to put the person to trauma so that they will have developed disabilities. Like we know from Sedna's story, okay, she was not accommodated by society and betrayed by her father, and then she drowned into the ocean, was disabled in her hands by her father, and developed psychic abilities, so much so you had to worship Sedna to be Sedna, otherwise you would not get food. Okay, you could alternatively make sure you have children have childhood and they're not raped and they're not murdered, and so on. But then, you know, people in past times were the soul nature, and they thought, okay, if I sacrifice this human for something that I really, really, really want, so one human is sacrificed so that we will have food for the entire country, they thought this makes sense. Because animals, what they do, they're predatory. But engaging in consciousness and evolution of consciousness, it actually leads us to places where, no, you don't have to sacrifice what is human. You can make a symbolic acts. And for these setting intentions, they're no less powerful. And there's a connection between spirit and the matter that is not one-to-one, but allows you to alchemize, not with acts of violence as steel magus practice, okay? But yes, with elements, okay? If the fire is one of the elements, and is not less powerful, but actually sometimes way more powerful, because you actually tend to what you desire, the essence of desire, and you open doors using more faculties of nature and the cosmos. Okay, you're attending to. If you are engaging with the psychic, then you're receiving from the psychic, and this is very real, okay, information. And if you don't know how to interpret this, yes, I can say that even when I was Saturn in my 12th house, then when I began to understand that what they call psychosis is not really psychosis, I said, let's engage, well, let's try to channel then. And well, many things happened, but I also received some pretty valuable, very, very valid information that I see now is centering me in the face of what's going on right now in the world. Okay? So you think about water infrastructure. Saturn infrastructure, Pisces water. Okay? This is already a stepping stone. It's a small time in history, okay? In the tale of times. 1.5 years. And you want to keep track of that, because 20 years from now, you're going to be very grateful. You have even so much attended to what you're attending to today. And let's compartmentalize, okay, let's put this consciousness file in the cosmos to be accessible all throughout the passage of Saturn and the passage of Pluto. So is accessible, this information for people, and can be retrieved and brought to consciousness in the face of whatever is planned for humanity, and also to manifest our own reset, or our own desired world, galaxy, and so on, and life. So this is Saturn in Pisces and Pluto in Pisces for you. Rao is definitely, I called it the drought and the flood. It's definitely going to bring those themes, and you want to pay attention of those themes. Fated events will occur, fated revelations, fated new directions. Pay attention of everything, conserve it, or let go of what you need to, but also keep in mind that that's going to serve as the stepping stone on which you can definitely be like almost not almost, it's literally the philosopher's stone, the Saturn in Pisces, okay, the Saturn rock stones philosophy, Pisces, Jupiter. The philosophers is going to be your philosopher's stones, or the holy grail stone for when Pluto is in Pisces. Okay? If you know that the cure to psychosis is housing first and believing people, you say they may not have all the details, they may not have this, they may be said, they may be sensitive to wanting to experience an analogy, but in essence they got it right. I need to get what they're seeing more so than they need to get what I'm seeing they see. What they are seeing, I better attend to. Okay? If you get it now, when Pluto in 0 degree Aquarius, it will be very difficult to MK Ultra you, which is what they're trying to do right now. And it will be very difficult to fool you into believing that you are the problem of what you see. And when you begin to shield your energy, and to tend to shielding your energy and the patterns associated with that, okay? Just knowing that psychosis solution is housing first, independent of ability to work, right? You need to ground yourself and to express and be believed and to be seen. But it's beginning with yourself. You are not imagining. There's an essence of truth in your senses, in your perceptions. They can try to twist and turn, but there's an essence of truth and clarity in you. And worthiness in you, divine love in you. You can ask for access, set intention. Okay, surrender and allow things to manifest, to be with the longing, be with the void. Also shield, return to sender, known and unknown, but not someone specific. Begin to discover things. And in that way, with the vividness of all that, see the vividness of you, because as to say in politics, don't remember what US president said, that obviously Mason, for the OR. You can fool some of the people some of the time, but not all the people all the time. Now is the time they try to fool all the people all the time, and that inevitably means a total collapse of the very dreams they had that were essentially desired to break free of their own imprisonment, because they were raised as children that were imprisoned into slavery, and so they cannot even imagine freedom sometimes. Maybe think big cars, big planes. Everybody obeys me. Okay? In essence, self-trust, connection, relaxing into something. If people that did not have access to this, they're going to try to come about life and the desire to live in other ways. There's nothing wrong about, a big plane. But and traveling is lovely. But to genuinely enjoy that for more than just a fraction, feel the void within, this deeper connection that has to be there. And for the people that are the survivors or that have encountered, that are moving in the bridge, okay, along the survivors list, the bridge to usher people also outside of that cave and into life. And we've all been in a certain cave, and if we're all ushered into life. And I'm going to end with a story about a Uranus or gold talisman I made when I said it was an energy that's coming around. And right after I made this talisman with 5th lunar mansion and attended to expandable children, I was driving with the bus, and there was a car next to me, to my left leg, below. It's a good place that is supposed to be this omen. And the lizard came. Now, with lizard, what we know, there are lizard people that are going to take over the world and so on and so forth. Yes, it's probably true. Okay, if you can watch David Icke. He has a lot of information about that. But I am not satisfied with one point of view, because Uranus Algol is about. And then I realized this good omen, if it's a woman sitting and she sees lizard to her left, is good omen. And I looked at what the symbolism attended to expandable children. At that time, a Malawi chief abolished child weddings in her country, in her tribal society. Over 300,000 child marriages were cancelled, I think, yes, by her, or around 3 years, I don't remember, were cancelled by her. And the Malawi story of lizards goes like this. A divine or God that says to a lizard, go to humanity, tell humanity is going to be safe, they're coming better times. Okay, what we call golden ages. And this lizard was very slow. Another lizard came in, it was faster. And he says to humanity, you don't know what's coming. Everybody's coming for you. You have no idea what's going to happen. Okay? And so, for humanity is doomed and gloomed. It's gonna be Armageddon. And so, this is the two lizard story coming from that Malawi culture that recently had a woman chief that abolished the child weddings. And this is exactly the story of Uranus and Algol. If you look into the Second World War, it's a terrible war, great war, horrible war. Yes? Well, if you ask every public figure, known and unknown, every decision maker, they go through this Holocaust all day long. They are breathed into this Holocaust. We never get to see that. And they tell them, you are free. And they tell them, we are slaves. There are places where we are slaves and they are free. And there are places where they are slaves and we are free. And when I attended to political assassination threats, and saw people that are in prisons 24/7, everyone, security around them, and how they experience when they shape-shift into my energy just to see what it's like to take a walk around the neighborhood and not have million police people around you. what it looks like. And I realized, my God, there are places where I'm safe and free. I made a lot of talismanic work to do to get there, but yes, 1941 was a year where there was a big world war. 1939 to 1941. Crisis, financial. Hitler arrested Baron Rothschild. Of course, it's going to be Holocaust. But Hitler himself was a cultist. And the very top ranks of these occults, where you have to sign with blood, you have to do genocide. Okay? And he got cyanide because he went along with it. It's death cults. Okay? The first thing they teach is memento mori. Remember that X-Files episode, Memento Mori? Remember your death. But that's how I discovered that they also tried to initiate me, because I was looking into holistic medicine, yes? So you look at death to see life, and you think about what type of death, and then when I was channeling, it was like, choose the death, and then we will show you what the actions that you need to do to get to this death. That's how they get you. And there are some very interesting things that you find out. But I also see, well, that doesn't feel good to me. That doesn't feel good. I began to take my power back. That's why I love channeling, receiving information, but it's important to have sovereignty, to have dignity. Then I ran into Tema Mundi, made by woman where astrologers are. This is the cult, of course. But in the top rankings of these cults, they want to eliminate women. And they want to eliminate birthing. And she had no idea. She thought there were girls, I don't know, maybe after her business, maybe after her husband, okay, stalking her and this and that. And she didn't know what was going on. You're doing a fertility talisman made by a woman in a death cult that's run by men trying to create hermaphrodites so that they will lose the sexual polarity, so there will not be birthing. And you talk about sovereignty. That's what's going on. Okay? That's why people made it so hard for herself. And she thought nobody ever did that before. Nobody ever tried to do this Tema Mundi chart magically before. Oh my God, she had this revelation. Okay? That's literally the thing that they used to create for these holocausts. Okay? So, in all the religions, recently I saw the Jewish one that they made, but of course you have to donate a lot of projects that I'm not sure I'm into to get that. And they did it with 8 oh God, Mituman, I have no idea how to say that. Octagon, is that how you say it? And so I saw, this is what they describe here, this is Tema Mundi. Oh, now it's the Jewish version. Because you run into all the people that would use the world. Okay, everybody uses the world. You see all the people, every once in a while, everybody uses the globus. That's when they try to make global mumbo jumbo. Okay, but you got to reclaim your own egregore. Okay, so but that's the thing. And what happened after Second World War? Beta per se, what does she protect? Against rape, against psychosis, against medical diagnosis and tagging off the voice of survivors, women, maidens, sisters, artists. Okay? Who was Adolf Hitler? An artist. first and foremost painter. Then he got recruited, he got put through this, put through that. He didn't want to be an officer. He couldn't be an officer, it's true, he couldn't be an officer. Art is not free. Adolf Hitler. Okay? Churchill did way worse. Way worse. Dark-skinned people, nobody cares. Somebody cares about Congo. Palestinians, they got this off-white. It's like almost like Jews. Still practicing infanticide and child weddings. Okay. They're the next Jews. But Uranus Salgo, after that, women get the right to vote. They have a bank account. Why? Because they had, two generations of men died. So they had to run their businesses, they had to run their lives. And suddenly, with these things that men would say, you don't understand in that. Or maybe she said, oh, why do I need to do that? You go to vote what you think. Okay, like in those that call themselves Jews, but if anybody that calls woman that calls her husband Baal, it's not Jew. Okay, I don't think they know that, but I didn't know that. Okay, it's not Jewish. It's just it's antithetical to what a lot of criticism about Judaism. Yes, but that's not Judaism even. So what you see, the Orthodox, they say, well, what do you vote? Well, what the rabbi says. Yes, because it doesn't, they get the food, they get the water, they get the this, they get the that. That's what the rabbi says. That's what we vote. Okay, even secular. I had my best friend back then was like, he was not sure if he was going to go for radical right wing or radical left wing. And he would go to vote and is not sure yet what to choose. Okay? And it's very true because, in Netherlands it's all rubber bank. Also very likely in Israel. Okay? And so, if anyway you're going to vote for the rubber bank, what is the difference does it make what presenter you vote for the rubber bank for? It's the same agenda. They have to. Do you want to start with making prisons like this, or you want to start with injecting stuff to people? Which side of the program do you want to start with? Okay? If we go back to 1996, two things happened. First, the White March against the pedophile ring of Marc de Croix, Brussels. It's got a picture with Mark Rutte back there, young Mark Rutte. And there was the foundation of the Taliban with mid-heaven on our goal. What after? After Second World War, yes, women got the right to vote, because now there wasn't men around. And then in places like Britain, they voted first left, because they said, finally we have right to vote. A lot of women fought for this, died for this, and so on. And then they voted conservative. They asked conservative, are we going to change? They said, no, we're conservative, we keep the right to vote. And the person that taught me that, the fact that I didn't off his head is a part of why I'm able to talk about this in a counter way, because I had to flip of what the Mossad magic that they tried, the M, I had to flip on the M magic. What if I did the M, so it will be benefic magic to me. And so that's, yeah. So if you get harassed at work, I wish you to never get harassed at work, or somebody try to MK Ultra you, yes, always assume the best, that this person is programmed, and try to go for you and look at the structure. Because if you dedicate all this energy at this person, you just give power away. If you dedicate all this energy at you, then this person gives all information away. You gotta find a way out the cult. You gotta find a way out. Let's get out of here. Yeah, I can find a way out the cult. Stop with that magic. That's how they taught you to hit with girls. No way they try to get rid of women, because that doesn't yield birthing. I get that. But it does yield division. And it does yield war. It does yield trauma. And it does yield money moving from one pocket out of the other pocket at the same devil in the Vatican. So but this is what Algol Uranus does. Okay, there is great chaos. There's liberating some structures in society that's been calling to change. Okay, there are also things that maybe we didn't like. If you think about the woman 100 years ago, maybe some of them, if they lived good with their husband, it's like, oh, you did what you vote. I don't know what we vote, what they vote, what they don't. I don't know. This voting. Why do we need voting? We live good. Okay. It's when this doesn't work, when we have to think about it, we have to tend to that, and we have to create for better systems. Now is opening time to think about water infrastructures and all of these things I talked about. Okay, expandable children, children that you don't even know that are born and not even registered at birth, the replaced at birth children, incest, religion, compassion. Okay, give grace for the children as well. Okay, yes, give grace for people if they want to rehabilitate and so on. Really give grace for the children. Drugs. Okay, what is drug? What is pyramidal or extra pyramidal? Did you know that I recently discovered amphetamines? One of the components is a sodium cyanide. Maybe I should have homemade that. So if I feel hopeful today, maybe I'll take amphetamines and I'll be competent and study and write a thesis. And then if I feel bad, and then the worst case scenario, I can use the cyanide. But I don't get to call the shots, and those who do, when a Supreme Court judge has to sacrifice another child in torture, in rape, in electrocution, the child dies, of course, because they have to murder it on tape. It has to be done on tape, so it can be extorted. So it means there are the tape. And Vault Safe would probably have them all. Oh. And now they're asking an Elon Musk to build an infrastructure, SpaceX, that's going to have to support all. Will Donald Trump save Elon Musk? I don't know. Because Donald Trump is an eclipse child. That's the one they couldn't control. But Donald Trump, like Elon Musk, were also expandable children that had to be extorted in this way as well. You can watch D-Day. Watch D, the Imagination podcast, D's testimony. Okay, and you can imagine what is the infrastructure that allows me to broadcast this to you. Okay, internet from all over the world. It's very comfortable. You can order pizza in an island in Hawaii, and it actually gets to you. You can order a talisman from USA in the middle of war. And I guess the great things about connection. And if we abolish expandable children and child sacrifice, we can enjoy these great things about connection, not at the expense of or in the account of humanity, but in benefit of humanity. Exit, I said what I said. You launched X.com with Vinuranus on Algol, beta per se. We're talking beta per se. I said just tending to things, just tending to things. And it's also for us to understand that what we thought was monsters, who would do that to people? Well, there's a lot of energy invested in the creation of what we call these monsters. And we would be surprised how reversible that is when we actually tend to expandable children. Because the soul continuously wants to live, to expand, to grow, to love, to connect. And it is only the intense amount of trauma that is intentionally invested in people unnecessarily that keeps it from doing so. So when we tend to that, we find that what we thought was impossible is possible, not just in the bad sense of a way, but also in the best sense of the way. And I'll end with that.